Part 22. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 211. On the way to the village, Lu Feng found that although the village was small, it was very wealthy. The main road leading to the village was actually a cement road. Not far away, you can see the village committee covered with red bricks and green tiles, which is very impressive. Our village is very rich, Lu Feng said. Mr. Lu's blessing mainly depends on the electronics factory. In fact, it can be more prosperous. When a big man like President Lu comes, money will naturally come, and our well-off life will also come, Zhao Ergo said with a smile. Have we had a meeting with the villagers? Lu Feng asked. Open, I persuaded them hard, and told them not to be greedy. Everyone knows about the case. President Lu does not recognize the 25% of the equity. After so many years, there is no result. I want $1,000. That's a lot. Zhao Ergo looked embarrassed and sighed. No one in this village has ever gone to school, and I was almost beaten. Seeing that he was doing his best, Lu Feng said, Village Zhao has worked hard. It's all right. I also have selfish intentions. If you come, this village will be lively. If I become the village chief, I can make more money. Zhao Ergo smiled very honestly. Everyone in the village knew that the big boss was coming today, and they all stood on the side of the road watching the car. They were temporarily appeased by Zhao Ergo. After the electronics factory had been discussed, the family might be able to send $500. 1,000. This amount of money is enough for the villagers. They had no idea about the affairs between the village and the electronics factory and township enterprises. The village explained to the villagers that the land occupation was forcibly taken, and there was no money. As for investing in the electronics factory, the money was invested by several companies, and it was just borrowing the name of the village. Today, the villagers are also very happy. They can get a few $100 without doing anything. Why not? Lu Feng lowered the car window and looked at a few children on the side of the road. They were holding willow stalks and wearing hard plastic sandals that cost a few dollars each. Look at these cars. They may have never seen a commercial car, or even so many cars in this village. Lu Feng waved to them. There were a few children standing around the corner with stones in their hands. Zhao Ergo glanced at them and scolded, What are you doing standing here? Go home and eat. Several children scattered in a hurry. Country children, I'm afraid they will throw stones at the car, Zhao Ergo explained. The car stopped at the gate of the village committee. Lu Feng got out of the car and felt the scorching Sunday. Not far away were a few large willow trees. The fragrance of flowers wafted in the air. The sound of children playing in the distance could be heard. The children at the corner just now were riding on a willow stick, their mouths open. The sound of driving dashed past. They looked at Lu Feng, and Lu Feng looked at them. President Lu, please, Zhao Ergo said politely. Just take a bite. Lu Feng turned around and greeted Su Yorong, Zhang Fengxia, and Kui Ning as they walked in together. The table was already full of food, and several aunts in their 40s were busy with their work. Everyone was polite and sat down. While eating, they chatted about the village. Zhao Ergo insisted that this is all the meaning of the villagers, he is just an errand, running errands. The 6 sons and a group of people had eaten a long time ago. After seeing that it was almost time, they kicked Sibiao with their feet and shouted, Call someone, get busy, block the village committee for me, and tell them to be smart and keep an eye on them. Look at the man, don't stare at the 2 women. Sun Er nodded again and again, then bent down and walked out the door. There were more than 20 people in the 3 courtyards, all young people in their 20s and 30s. People who thought it was cleaning. A group of people walked to the village committee, blocked the door instantly and shouted, The work injury is left unattended, the person is maimed, and I have been lying in bed for 2 years without anyone taking care of me. Let Lu Feng come out and lose money. If you lose money, you won't be able to leave today without losing money. The noise outside disturbed the inside. Lu Feng listened to it, and secretly screamed in his heart, looked at Zhao Ergu and asked, "What's the situation?" "I do not know either." "Why are there so many people?" Secretary Kui put down his glass and said, "What's the fuss about?" "Oh, it's broken, the old Zhou's son brought people to make trouble. His father used to work in an electronics factory and broke his leg. No one cares. I heard that Mr. Lu was going to take over these days. He made a lot of trouble with me." "Time. What does this have to do with us?" Zhang Fengxia called out, turning her head to look at the excited crowd outside. Lu Feng felt like a mirror in his heart at this moment. He couldn't stay here any longer. He stood up and said, "Since this is the case, village chief Zhao will go out and tell them first." "Is there a back door?" "Let's go through the back door." Ah, Zhao Ergu didn't expect Lu Feng to be so decisive, so he ran away through the back door without shame, and hurriedly said, "These people are in control of the car, you can't leave." "It doesn't matter, the car doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the city." Village Chief Zhao dragged these people. "We walked to the entrance of the village and stopped the car to go back to the city." Lu Feng waved his hand and was about to leave. Secretary Kui was dumbfounded and left himself here. If those cars were impounded by the village, he would be scolded to death when he went back. He hurriedly said, "Mr. Lu, we can't leave." "Yes," Zhao Ergu also hurriedly said. "Why can't you leave?" Lu Feng looked at the two of them and said, "You two are going to watch me get beaten." Zhao Ergu was stunned for a moment, and said, "Mr. Lu, everyone in the Zhou family is going crazy. They can do anything. If someone guards the back door and hurts you, it's not good. I'll help you." Secretary Kui stared at Lu Feng in embarrassment. If he left now and the car was impounded here, he would have to notify the subordinate police station through the Public Security Bureau to solve it, which would be particularly troublesome. Today was the first day when Secretary Kui returned to be eaten alive by Huang Youwei. Lu Feng also knew about these situations, so he sighed and nodded and agreed, as a way to give Secretary Kui a face. If he planned to work here for a long time, he had to take care of the king and the kid. A layer of cold sweat broke out from Zhao Ergu's back. He felt that this kid was very shrewd, and his intuition told him that Lu Feng instantly realized that this was a pit and instinctively avoided it. "I secretly thought in my heart that I might have underestimated the enemy. I went out and saw Sun Er and Sibiao standing in front of them shouting, kicking the door with their feet, clamoring to climb over the wall and enter." "Be quiet, old Zhou's son, what are you making a fuss about?" Zhao Ergu scolded Sibiao. Biao slammed the door and shouted, "My father paid so much for the electronics factory, and he even occupied the land of my house. As a result, he was paralyzed in bed, and he didn't see a single penny. No one wants to leave." "That's right, our old Zhou family doesn't agree. Do you really think our Zhou family is easy to bully? Call out the surnamed Lu, don't think we don't know, the factory is now under his control. Get out." The crowd was clamoring wildly, a dozen people blocked the door, the rest surrounded several cars, and some people were even lying on the bottom of the car. Su Yorong watched from under the eaves, and asked Secretary Kui, "Have you offended people in this village?" "No, it's the first time I've come to this village." Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng and smiled, and said, "This village chief Zhao gave you eye drops." Lu Feng looked through the crowd and saw a young man with long hair sitting under a big willow tree not far away, with a motorcycle parked beside him. He was familiar with this motorcycle. When he went to the city that day, Zhao Ergu rode this motorcycle. The young man waved his hands to the crowd from time to time. "Open the door." "Zhao Ergu, if you don't open the door, don't blame me for hitting you with a fork." Zhao Ergu was embarrassed, opened the door, and shouted to everyone, "Don't be impulsive, don't hurt people, everything is easy to discuss, and it can be solved. President Lu will solve it for everyone. Sibiao rushed in a daze, holding a shovel in his hand. He looked at these people, a little confused. He didn't know who Lu Feng was, and shouted, "Who is President Lu?" Lu Feng stretched out his hand and pointed at Secretary Kui. "He is." Secretary Kui's eyes widened. He never dreamed that Lu Feng was such a big boss, and before he could react, a group of people rushed towards Secretary Kui. "Excuse me, Mr. Lu is over there, you can find him." Lu Feng held Zhang Fengxia with one hand and Su Yurong with the other, and the villagers around him politely gave way to him. Zhao Ergu stood by and looked dumbfounded, and called out in a hurry, "Mr. Lu, where are you going?" Only then did everyone react, and they rushed towards the side. Lu Feng stared at Zhao Ergu. Zhao Ergu was calm at this time, and everyone spread it out. Sun Er rushed up and shouted, "Okay, I almost let you run away. Let me tell you, you can't escape the matter of the Zhou family. Don't make excuses. Now the electronics factory is your responsibility." We all read the newspaper. There were shovels and forks in front of Lu Feng, and there were people all around. Su Yurong and Zhang Fengxia had already stepped aside. "Please keep this dung fork away from me." Lu Feng pointed to the dung fork, glanced at the crowd and asked, "Whose father had an accident in the electronics factory?" "Me," Sibiao stepped forward and called. Lu Feng looked at him with a bald head and a scar on his head, looking not very smart, and asked, "Your surname is Zhou?" "Right. These are all your Zhou family?" Lu Feng asked again. "Yes, don't try to bully my Zhou family." Lu Feng stretched out his hand and pulled the lanky Sun Er over and asked, "What is his name, Zhou? What does it have to do with you?" "Weak." Sun Er's mind was very flexible, and he broke away from Lu Feng's hand and shouted, "It's none of your business, I tell you, don't try to escape, the money you owe can't be paid today, we won't agree." At the scene, Sun Er and Sibiao were in the state, and the others were standing there dumbfounded, and there was another one who started to pick his nails. Lu Zi, who was not far away, stood up anxiously and waved his hands again and again. Zhao Ergu stood outside and kicked the outside. "Several people have several feet. That's fine, I'll see your father and see how he is paralyzed," Lu Feng said. Both Sun Er and Sibiao were at a loss for words, and felt that this requirement was not excessive at all. Zhao Ergu couldn't stand it any longer, and said, "Mr. Lu, he is paralyzed, he can't send feces and urine, it stinks to death, or don't go." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 212. Looking at these people, Lu Feng knew better than anyone else that this money could not be given. Once it was given, there would be endless troubles. I won't say whether it's true or false. I went to whoever had the problem back then. I haven't reached an acquisition agreement yet. If you detain me for my personal freedom, it may constitute a crime of kidnapping. Think about it, this is a crime of kidnapping. To pull out the crime of shooting, Lu Feng shouted at everyone. Since ancient times, killing people to pay for their lives and debts, no one can come. Today, they can't leave without compensation. Biao shouted, "Tie him up for me, and hang him in a bullpen." A dozen people squeezed forward. In the chaos, someone grabbed Lu Feng's hand. The shovel and steel fork were swaying in front of him. Zhang Fengxia wanted to go up and pull the people away, but was grabbed by Su Yurong. "Why are you arresting me? Why don't you help me?" Zhang Fengxia said in a hurry. "Don't go up, it's a mess, I don't even know who to call if I give you a shovel," Kui Ning said and pulled her aside. Some people stared at them and refused to let them go. In less than a moment, Lu Feng was pushed and shoved out of the yard of the village committee. His shirt was torn, and he looked a little embarrassed. Someone took a rope and tried to tie him up. Lu Feng didn't resist much the whole time. He knew that in this situation, all resistance would be futile, and he was easily injured. "Call the police," Lu Feng shouted. This was his only struggle. When the people from the township police station arrived, it was already half an hour later. Lu Feng was tied to the fence of the village committee by Wu Huada. Most of the people in the village came out to see, and more than 20 people were shouting aggressively, Zhao Ergu said. "After a few scenes, I pretended to persuade me, and I didn't say more." "Who called the police?" "What happened?" A few police officers came over and asked. Zhao Ergu stepped forward and said, "Something happened, Sibiao and Sun Er tied up the boss." After briefly talking about the cause and effect, one of the policemen said, "This matter can only be mediated." "You can talk about it? You are not allowed to use a knife and move. If you die, you will all be shot." Lu Feng explained it, but the other party didn't listen at all, so he just remembered a trick, and the mud. After the police left, Si Biao clamored to hang Lu Feng on the beam of the cattle pen. Lu Feng asked, "How much was the compensation?" "You're willing to lose money, aren't you? You just said you're not responsible. Do you really think our villagers are easy to bully?" Su Yorong hurriedly leaned beside Lu Feng. He whispered, "This hole can't be opened, otherwise you really can't buy the factory, and these people can eat you alive." "Of course I know, otherwise I will be put in a bullpen." "Do you think these people can't do it?" "Get out first." Lu Feng looked at Sibiao and asked, "I really want to buy an electronics factory. It's the same thing, if it's solved now, it will be solved in the future. My father's disability compensation, medical expenses and other compensation, 100,000 yuan. As soon as this number came out, not to mention the villagers who were onlookers, even these two scoundrels were shocked and sucked in the cold air. 100,000 yuan? This is simply an astronomical number, one by one looking at Lu Feng's eyes glowing. Zhao Ergu didn't expect Si Biao to be so stupid. He actually called out the amount of money and walked forward. "Mr. Lu, I will be a middleman and witness. Let's go to the village committee and talk." A few minutes later, a reconciliation was written, and Lu Feng asked Zhang Fengxia to take the money into the city by car. It was not until 6 o'clock in the evening that Zhang Fengxia came with the money. "I'm really sorry, I really didn't know he gave you such a show. Another day, I must invite President Lu to have a good meal." Zhao Ergu was condescending, with a look of guilt on his face. "It doesn't need to be another day, just the day after tomorrow," Lu Feng said. "Ah, the day after tomorrow," Zhao Ergu didn't know what he meant for a while. "Yes, the day after tomorrow," Lu Feng said and got into the car. On the way back, Secretary Kui scolded angrily, but he had nothing to do. He was from the municipal office. When he entered the village, he had to be obedient, especially in the current village, where the family is huge, the forces are intricate, and many people run transport. People walk around the village when they see it. It's too bad. We haven't seen anything, so we will compensate others for 100,000 yuan. Zhang Fengxia looked at Lu Feng and said, "This is considered extortion, from the law." Lu Feng interrupted her. Zhang Fengxia is indeed more professional than Lu Feng in administrative management, but in terms of real human relations, Lu Feng dumped her 80 streets. I didn't see that it was written about reconciliation. Books, things in the village can only be mediated. Do you expect the village to help you? But don't talk about it. Maybe the people in the township are people from this village, maybe there are 7 ants and 8 ants. Those township enterprises are all hands-on in this kind of place." Kui Ning told the truth of the current village. "You said the day after tomorrow." Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng and asked, "What are you doing here the day after tomorrow? This game is broken. If it is not broken, it will not stand, and the acquisition will not be completed," Lu Feng said solemnly. "Whoever sees this kind of situation will have a headache." The companies that come here have no other option except to be scrapped with a layer of oil and water. Su Yorong looked at him with interest and asked, "What should I do?" "Fight." "Relation." Lu Feng shook his head and looked at Su Yorong. The woman was curious about his methods, and said slowly, "I've seen Romance of the Three Kingdoms. When Liu Bei was dying, he told Zhuge that if Lu Chan was worth assisting, he would assist him, if not, he could replace him." "Of. Can you replace it?" Su Yorong frowned slightly. After returning to the hotel, changing clothes and having dinner, Lu Feng went back to the room and called Zhang Xiaoyan for half an hour before falling asleep. Before going to bed, he locked the door, lest he wake up again. Zhang Fengxia came in, "Or so lie down on your own bed." At 8 o'clock in the evening, Huang Youwei finished his work, picked up the phone on the table and called Secretary Kui, "Come to my office and report today's affairs." A few minutes later, Secretary Kui came in and told the story in full. Huang Youwei frowned when he heard it. The village chief Zhao was so ruthless that he extorted 100,000 yuan. "Can you replace it?" Huang Youwei pondered thoughtfully and asked, "What is the replacement?" "I don't know either. Don't look at the young age of this President Liu. He is quite sophisticated in his words and actions." Secretary Kui pondered for a while and said, "I don't think he can handle the people in Xiaoli village. It's hob meat, and it might be gone in a few days." Huang Youwei shook his head when he heard what he said. "Lu Feng, a person, never does anything he is not sure about. Since he said it, it means he should do it. Tell him, don't be rude to me. The Public Security Bureau is not the only one who has the final say, and don't expect me to give him the bottom line," Huang Youwei said solemnly. The next morning, at 6 o'clock, just after breakfast was set up, Lu Feng walked in, ate and drank, changed his clothes, and drove directly to the township near Xiaoli village. The township is now a market, and it is very lively. Yesterday, the matter of Xiaoli village had been rumored among all kinds of second-rate people. Lu Feng drove to the supermarket in the town and bought a zonghua. Not far away, he saw 7 or 8 young people who were full of air, some riding motorcycles and some riding 28 cars. "What are you guys talking about?" Lu Feng stepped forward and asked. Several people turned their heads to look at him in an instant, and found that they didn't know each other, so they stared straight at him. Come, smoke, brother, my surname is Lu, Haoyan, Huazi." Lu Feng opened 1 packet per person. A few people holding cigarettes can't believe it. "This is too bold, isn't it? Yesterday, a boss was beaten on a bamboo pole in Xiaoli village, 100,000 yuan. It's a fat pig. Why can't I encounter such a thing? I heard that they bought an electronics factory. For a big boss like someone else, 100,000 yuan is just the tip of the hair." Lu Feng listened and asked, "Who has the final say in Xiaoli village? Who is the best?" "Sixth brother." "Who is the 6th brother? Isn't it a black donkey?" "The black donkey is from the town next door. Don't you know the 6th brother? It's the one-eyed nephew. He invited people to dinner last time." Yes, 6 sons." "Is it about 1.78 meters, with long hair and flared pants?" Lu Feng asked. Yes, 6th brother will always karaoke." Ha 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 ha. The atmosphere at the scene was very harmonious. Lu Feng had a simple understanding of the 6 sons. At the age of 27, he was a bully in Xiaoli village. He had a house in the city. The boss had already entered because of embezzlement of state-owned assets 2 years ago. Lu Feng scattered cigarettes all over the town, met a few people from Xiaoli village, invited them to dinner at noon, and talked about what happened yesterday. They all said that Lu Feng had been tricked. Lu Feng smiled and didn't say a word. He just asked them if they knew about the shareholding in the electronics factory. Several of them shook their heads. In the afternoon, Lu Feng had a basic understanding of the situation in Xiaoli village. Zhao Ergu owns a building in the city, and is affiliated with a local mining company. He receives salary every month. Someone in the town has visited his building. This person seldom farms, and mainly works for the people in the city. For the people in the village, he uses the 6 sons as a means. The position of the village chief is very stable. Once again, he drank too much at the wine bureau. An electronics factory becomes a multi-millionaire, and every village knows it. At 3:30 in the afternoon, Lu Feng went to the talent market. From Wang and Wang, he found a few people with fierce faces and tattoos, and they paid 50 yuan a day. As for what they were doing, they knew very well. Back to the hotel at 6:30 in the evening. "Where are you going today?" Zhang Fengxia asked when she saw Lu Feng again. "Go to investigate. What can I do?" Lu Feng said casually. "Secretary Kui is here in the afternoon. I have something to do with you. If I can't wait for a long time, I will leave." Secretary Huang said that you should be stable. If something goes wrong, he will not give you the bottom line. Don't have any illusions. Lu Feng leaned on the sofa and lit a cigarette and said, "Got it, Huang Yue, if you drop a piece of dust, you are afraid to hit your head." "What are you going to do tomorrow?" Su Yorong asked. "Enter the village." Lu Feng's expression turned cold, and he said solemnly, "Do him." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 213. Lu Feng didn't say anything to the two of them. He asked them to stay at the hotel with peace of mind tomorrow, and instructed Zhang Fengxia to continue to strengthen the work of the office. The talents who should be recruited must not be left behind. The newspaper propaganda over there should not be too strong, but you don't need to invest too much money in it. Jiafeng technology has been established for such a long time, and Lu Feng has not found a specific person in charge. Although it is during the entrepreneurial period, Lu Feng needs to do many complicated things himself, but a good manager can help him share enough things. Zhang Fengxia has always felt that she is the general manager of Jiafeng Technology, and she is also very interested in this position, especially after being with Gao Jiwei and Lu Feng for so long, plus what she has learned, is enough to deal with the current situation. According to Zhang Fengxia's vision, Lu Feng's focus should be on Jiafeng Technology in the next 2 years. She is also a specific executor and has little role in the decision-making level. For her, these 2 years will be a huge growth. The matter of Lu Feng being ripped off began to ferment in the city's business circles, and the result was laughable and generous. For this young boss, it was just wishful thinking to reach out to pick big fruits as soon as he arrived. Someone even called Huang Yue to inquire about Lu Feng's origins. Where did he find such a stupid person with a lot of money? Huang Yue said a few words, haha. He was slightly dissatisfied with the contempt of the local business community. The next step is Lu Feng's big move, and now he is afraid that it will be too big. After 8 o'clock in the evening, Huang Yue was still worried, so he called the hotel directly, and transferred to the internal line to go directly to Lu Feng's house. "Hello, who is it?" Lu Feng answered the phone and asked. "Me, Huang Yue, are you ready to start tomorrow?" "Tell me what you think," Huang Yue asked. "How do you know?" "Send someone to monitor me," Lu Feng wondered. "What's the relationship between Mr. Kui and Secretary Kui next to you, don't you know?" Lu Feng was also speechless. Kui Ning is such a big man, who is good at making small reports, and said, "I didn't plan to do anything, I just found some people to give some key people in the village to loosen their bones. It's a bit of a measure, don't make a big deal out of me. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble for you, and also, can you help me check this Zhao Ergu? His hands and feet are not clean, he hangs his name in the coal mine to pay vacant wages, and there are buildings in the city. I heard that it is a staff room, not to mention the village, everyone in the town knows it. I heard? Someone else heard that I colluded with you. What about the evidence, the hard-hitting evidence? Listening to the slightly aggressive tone on the other end of the phone, Lu Feng said, I don't want you to check it out. The people in the village don't know the equity of the year at all. You said, what are you going to do? I'm going to be the honorary mayor of Xiaoli village, Lu Feng said solemnly. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Huang Yuwei never dreamed of this trick. If he couldn't beat it, he joined and became a member of Xiaoli village. Isn't he just letting Lu Feng handle it? There is a village chief, but you are not from this village. So it's the honorary village chief. As for Zhao Ergu, I'm not satisfied. I want to support my own people and find someone who is obedient and can control the villagers, Lu Feng said very blatantly. What do you call this? What is control? Using the economy to win over, threatening some thorns with fists, double guarantee, so that when the electronics factory starts to operate, there will not be a situation where people will make trouble in 3 days. What I will do tomorrow is to destroy the 6 sons. I want you to help me get Zhao Ergu down. Lu Feng's words were straightforward. Tell me first, how did you get rid of the 6 sons? What will you do tomorrow? It's simple, just find someone and say that there is a dispute with him. Whatever they use to treat me, I will use whatever method to treat him. Lu Feng still hopes to use Huang Yuwei's power. This is the fastest way. He also has a way to solve Zhao Ergu. The problem is too complicated. Behind him are some second-raters and township enterprises, such as the one he has. Temporary coal mine. Zhao Ergu, as a minion of these people, had to go to a regular hospital to extract a tooth. Once the root of the tooth was injured, this kind of shock and struggle was something Lu Feng was unwilling to face, and it was also a headache for Huang Yuwei. Individuals are always the weakest in this society, and the camp is the ultimate destination of the strong. Huang Yuwei on the other end of the phone agreed. According to Lu Feng's method, the problem of Xiaoli village might really be solved. After chatting about other issues for a while, Lu Feng hung up the phone. In the next room, Su Yurong was half lying on the bed, wearing a silk pajamas, holding a red wine glass in her hand. Listening to the blind tone of hanging up, she also sighed at Lu Feng's ingenuity. Become the honorary mayor of Xiaoli village. Su Yurong smiled, picked up the phone and called President Lu, but the person who picked up was his assistant, and told Su Yurong that President Lu had been participating in the wine party these days and was very busy. The banquet hall on the 5th floor of Tianyu Hotel was wrapped up by GMA food this evening. Du Kefeng, Gao Jiwei, President Li, and other senior management were there. It was a simple celebration. The financing work was ready and selected. 3 of the most competitive companies. There are 17 tables and 170 people. The core members of the major factories are all there. The factory director alone can't sit at one table, and the deputy director is too many, not to mention the managers of other departments. Gao Jiwei is very happy today. He wants to witness GMA Food slowly moving towards the board of directors, or even the board of directors. The more shareholders, the better it will develop and the more stable it will be. Recently, he has also heard some things in the factory. There are many rumors about Lu Feng, not to mention the management, even the ordinary employees in the factory are muttering. During the meeting, many people suggested to hold a meeting for the following people, so that these people would not murmur less, or else they would murmur something wrong. Gao Jiwei didn't think so. Lu Feng can also be discussed and questioned. After a period of time, after he cashed out, he became one of the largest individual shareholders of the board of directors. As for Du Kefeng, I don't even care about this kind of thing. The status of the 2 people is concentrated on the board of directors that is about to change, especially the 3 new shareholders who have entered after financing, which will bring about changes. Now the positions of the 2 are designated by Lu Feng. As the company grows and becomes a group, after the headquarters is established, the board of directors will definitely elect a professional manager. The meal was very warm, even very successful, with thunderous applause from the scene, and the 2 bosses were radiant. On the 3rd floor, Mr. Lu sat in the private room, watched Mr. Wang take out a stack of paper from his bag, and said, "Mr. Wang, those few people are not enough. I still think you can be this representative, this authorization bookmark it. I have already obtained the power of attorney for 3,687 people. What's the meaning? The meaning is very simple. Holding these powers of attorney is equivalent to holding the voting rights of 30% of GMA Foods equity in the board of directors, which means that you can represent all the management to go toe-to-toe with Lu Feng on the board of directors." President Lu knocked on the table and said, "The opportunity is right in front of you. You can do it. Of course, there are 3 representatives like you." President Wang looked at the power of attorney in front of him. During this time, he already understood the strength of President Lu in front of him. He is definitely a big man with hands and eyes. He thought about it, took out a pen and signed his name. The next day, after 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng drove his car straight to the talent market, picked up the few people from yesterday, and hired a 3-bouncer to drag the rest to Xiaoli village. When he first entered the village, he was recognized, and he pointed and whispered, "Isn't that a big deal? Why is it here again? Did you come to send money?" "My mother." Lie down under his car. Someone was very clever. He walked in front of Lu Feng's car and fell down. Then he rolled around and covered himself with dirt. Looking at the stopped car, a smile appeared on his face, and then the smile froze. Because he saw not only Lu Feng getting out of the car, but also 4 thugs in their 20s and 30s covered in tattoos, and all the people in the car behind jumped out. These people were holding sticks more than 1 meter long in their hands. Lu Feng came over, took out Zonghua from his pocket, lit a stick, and asked, "My fellow, did I hit you?" "No, I fell myself, it has nothing to do with you." He waved his hands again and again, showing a hint of cowardice on his face, stood up and patted the dirt on his body and walked away. Others didn't dare to look more, their eyes were more dodgy, they stepped back one after another, and most of them were pulling their children home. After entering the village, the people sitting and chatting on the streets and alleys lost their voices one after another, staring at Lu Feng with a pair of eyes, very cautious. 6 sons came out of the house, saw Lu Feng as soon as they walked out of the alley, turned around and wanted to leave. "Stop. What's the matter?" Lu Zi turned his head and asked. "Why do you see me hiding? Is there a ghost in your heart?" "No, it has nothing to do with me, I forgot to take something." "Go home and take it." "You said there was no ghost in your heart, what are you doing? You don't know." Lu Feng stared at him and asked. "I didn't provoke you, so what are you looking for?" Lu Zi looked at these people and said, "It was Zhao Ergu that day, don't look for me, I didn't participate, and I don't know the Zhou family." "Don't talk about that." Lu Feng beckoned to his side, pulled a 1.8-meter strong man over, and asked, "Do you know this person?" Lu Zi looked at it, shook his head and said, "I don't know, what's wrong?" Lu Feng looked at him and smiled, put his hand on Lu Zi's shoulder, pulled him forward, and said, "He sells liangpi in town. You eat 2 bowls of liangpi, and you get paid for 1 bowl. I didn't go to town today." "Did I say it's today?" Lu Feng asked. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 214. People watching in the village saw Lu Feng and a group of people staring at Lu Zi and muttered. In the village, Lu Zi was definitely a figure who covered the sky with one hand. Has this big boss heard something? That's 100,000 yuan. No matter how rich you are, you can't count it like that. People just find fault with him. You said, can this big boss kill Lu Ziyi? What do you think? Qianglong can't suppress the local snake. Lu Ziyi stared at Lu Feng, feeling very unhappy, but he was surrounded by people. No matter how stubborn he was, he knew how to bow his head and said, maybe I forgot, I'll give you the money. What did you say? Lu Feng said loudly. I said I'd pay for that bowl of noodles. Be louder, I can't hear you, Lu Feng shouted. Lu Ziyi looked ruthless, gritted his teeth and roared, I'll make up for that bowl of noodles. I still can't hear you, you are very insincere. You are so arrogant. If you don't pay for the noodles, Lu Feng waved and shouted, tie me up and hang it here for the villagers to see. You don't pay for meals. What happens to people? 6 sons panicked and struggled desperately, but how could one person break free from more than a dozen people, and within a few minutes, he was tied up and hung from a tree by the roadside. People in the village were horrified when they saw this scene. Many people went home, and some people were leaning on the wall to watch. No one said a word to Lu Feng, and no one called hello. Because the people in the village knew that Lu Feng would leave sooner or later. This is the world of the 6 sons. When Lu Feng left, they had to face the anger of the 6 sons. The unbearable ones had already left, and the rest had become accustomed to being cowardly. Someone quietly told Sun Er that in less than 10 minutes, Sun Er rushed over with Sibiao and Zhao Ergu. Mr. Lu, what are you doing? Zhao Ergu called out when he saw the 6th son hanging from a tree. Is there still a king's law? Is there a law? Enter the village to beat people? Call the village. Sun Er stared at Lu Feng and said, you are deliberately taking revenge. Our Zhou family will not compromise against the people in our village. In less than 10 minutes. The police came again. It was the same few people who saw Lu Ziyi hanging up. They stepped forward and asked, what's this for? Come on, let's talk to the police. Don't. It's not like hanging him on a tree for no reason. He won't pay for the noodles, Lu Feng said with a sullen face. Since ancient times, people have killed people to pay their debts. I'm here to ask for the debts. Just hang him up. I said I'll pay back the money, Lu Ziyi yelled. It's too low, I can't hear it. Let's not talk about that first, take it back to the police station and talk about it. Zhao Ergu stepped forward and said in a low voice, Mr. Lu, you can tell me if you have any questions, it's easy for you to do this. The villagers were disgusted. I didn't seem to go to the police station yesterday to find out the ins and outs. I just settled the matter with one mouth. I brought the noodle shop today, isn't that enough? Lu Feng said, ignoring Zhao Ergu. Then, since it's a personal dispute, just settle it yourself, you can't cause trouble, the policeman said and left. Isn't it just a bowl of noodles? Why are you embarrassing a boss like you? Anyway, it's also from our village. I'm the head of the village, Mr. Lu. You have a lot of people, so it's not a problem to hang like this, Zhao Ergu said. I'll give you this money. I can't hear you, Lu Feng said, reaching for his ears. Zhao Ergu hurriedly touched his body, took out 200 yuan and stuffed it in Lu Feng's pocket. Lu Feng glanced at the time. He had been hanging for almost an hour, waved his hand and said, show face to the village chief, put people down, and the matter of face, that's it? Mr. Lu, let's go to the village committee for arrest. Regarding the electronics factory, I held a meeting with the villagers yesterday. Everyone said that I have a special fate with President Lu, and the price can be reduced, Zhao Ergu said. Lu Feng ignored Zhao Ergu, stood in the center of the village chief, and shouted loudly, folks, I am the chairman of Jiafeng Technology, Lu Feng, I am here to benefit everyone and lead everyone to a well-off life, don't listen to me. Gossip, for some lawbreakers, we must have the courage to report, don't be afraid of retaliation, and there are rewards for reporting. Zhao Ergu looked at Lu Feng coldly, and then at the quiet village. Only the child who didn't know who stuck his head out and glanced at it, and was then pulled back by the parents. Lu Feng was a little disappointed. Before leaving, a report box was hung at the entrance of the village. Before the car left the village, it was stabbed down with a bamboo pole. Lu Zi's arms were already full of bruises, and he scolded his mother in pain. He looked at Zhao Ergu and said, "This person is not a bad guy. Isn't it easy to mess with? Those big bosses going back and forth, which one is easy to mess with? In my case, it is the dragon who has to be coiled, and the tiger who has to lie down. Isn't the second lame family dead? His family was not with the electronics factory back then. What a fuss, find me a few people, ready to seek justice for the second lame family, all the materials for that year are ready." Zhao Ergu took a puff of cigarette and said thoughtfully, "Tonight, I will go to those stinging houses where I usually go to beat and beat. If anyone dares to go to the city to report and his legs will be broken, you can't use it too horribly. Take out $1,000 and give as much as you want. I didn't come forward that day, why are you staring at me?" Lu Zi sucked in the cold air in pain, and cursed a few times in his heart. The next day, Lu Feng brought a group of people into the village again and walked to the center of the village. Just when he saw the sixth son walking out of a yard, Lu Feng put on a smile and said, "Come here." Lu Zi didn't say a word and went straight into the yard. A group of people rushed into the yard and grabbed him out and pressed him on the street. "Mr. Lu, you didn't bully people like that, did you?" Lu Zi was pinned to the ground, raised his head and said, "What happened to me? Have you ever stayed in an entertainment city in the western suburbs?" Lu Feng crouched down and asked. "What's wrong?" "No money for whoring." Lu Feng looked at him and said. Lu Zi's eyes were closed. He knew that it was useless to say anything now. Everything was an excuse. A few minutes later, Lu Zi was hanged from the tree again, and the whole village could see it. There is a huge stone platform at the entrance of the supply and marketing cooperative. It is said that this is the place where criminals were beheaded during the Qing dynasty. Lu Feng stood on it with a loudspeaker and said loudly, "Villagers, don't be afraid. I am the chairman of Jiafeng Technology. You have to believe me. Starting today, as long as you tell me the news that is useful to me, you will be rewarded with 10,000 yuan in cash." 10,000 yuan? Someone stuck their head out in the yard, just glanced at Lu Feng, and returned to the yard again. In less than 10 minutes, Zhao Ergu came. Today is even more straightforward. He didn't call the police at all. Isn't it because he didn't pay the prostitute, he gave it? "Mr. Lu, since you want to take over the electronics factory so much, you have to clean the buttocks of the electronics factory. The second lame man in our village, all his 25 acres of land was occupied by the electronics factory, and he didn't pay a cent. He went to the court in a rage, but the last village chief broke his other leg. The second lame man was a bachelor, and his family's ancestral grave was also there, and there was no place to bury him when he died." Zhao Ergu stared at Lu Feng and said, "Since Mr. Lu said that he is so benevolent and righteous, please resolve this matter first. In a few days, I will sort out the information of the lawsuit that year. This is a matter of iron and steel." Looking at each other, Lu Feng's eyes were sharp. He stared at him and asked with a sneer, "Kun Chief Zhao, how much do I have to pay?" 1 acre of land is 10,000 yuan. Ancestral graves are calculated separately. Zhao village chief, I'm just curious, why don't you sell it? If you want money, sign up to sell the shares of the electronics factory in your hand, don't you just sell it. Zhao Ergu grinned, revealing a row of smoke-stained teeth, and said, "Mr. Lu, public is public, private is private, money is a thing, if you have the amount, you will share the account, the person below has to feed it, and the person above eat, fall into my mouth, how many tails of meat can you have? I understand the value of this electronics factory, today you are gone, Mr. Lu, tomorrow is his Mr. Zhao. Understood, you are on a running water table. Mr. Lu has already paid 100,000 yuan. Can't get the 250,000 yuan? I think you are going to pay. Zhao Ergu is very treacherous. The more Lu Feng wants to get the electronics factory, the more he will obey. There are many tricks behind, making 1.8 million a year is like playing. Lu Feng turned his head to look at the village, and hung the 6 sons for another hour. When he left, Lu Feng waited at the entrance of the village for more than an hour, but he still did not wait for a villager to report Zhao Ergu and the 6 sons. As soon as I arrived at the door of the hotel, I saw Secretary Kui. Mr. Lu, invite you to dinner tonight. Before getting off the car, Lu Feng went directly to the restaurant. Huang Youwei was already waiting. Seeing Lu Feng's unhappy face, he greeted him, "Sit down, it's not easy, right?" "It's not too difficult, what did you find?" Lu Feng sat down and asked. "What do I check? I'm in charge of the city, the people are the villages, and the 8 poles can't be beaten. If you have evidence, you can check it. If you don't have evidence, you can check it. Today, you heard Zhang San talk about Li Si, so go check Li Si, and listen to tomorrow." When Li Si said Wang Wu, he went to check Wang Wu. Wouldn't everyone be in danger? Huang Youwei stared at Lu Feng and said. "I understand, it's up to you to investigate. If you don't, you won't investigate." Lu Feng poured himself a glass of beer and said, "That village is monolithic. The villagers must have concerns. I told you the truth. If those people don't suffer disasters, they will turn around and target them, and they will do their best to get rid of evil." Huang Youwei said while eating, "There is another way." Lu Feng shook his head again and again. He knew the way. Huang Youwei said, to submit to Xiaoli village, support Zhao Ergu behind his back, become part of those township enterprises, and share the benefits together. "I'm still saying that, don't make things too big, I won't give you the bottom line." Huang Youwei picked up the wine glass and touched Lu Feng. Lu Feng nodded and ate with his head down. This night, many people in Xiaoli village were muttering that the price of 10,000 yuan is simply a sky-high price for many people. As the saying goes, there must be a brave man under the heavy reward. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 215. It was past 9 o'clock in the evening when Lu Feng returned to the hotel. Zhang Fengxia said that Gao Jiwei had called him. Regarding financing, Du Kefeng and Gao Jiwei had already arrived in Xiangjiang and were about to sign a contract. Lu Feng returned to the room and called Gao Jiwei. "Mr. Lu, I have already arrived in Xiangjiang with President Du and President Li, and we will officially sign the contract tomorrow." "Is that the companies you mentioned last time?" Lu Feng asked. "Yes, Zhengtian Investment, Zhongchuanglian Investment, Tianyan Fund. The opposite means, let's sign the contract first, and the funds will come in batches at the end of the year, because some of them are foreign capital and need to go through the process." "No problem," Lu Feng agreed immediately. As long as the contract was signed, it was normal for the money to be delayed for a few months. The content of the financing was confirmed again. In any case, Lu Feng is also the largest shareholder. Only after he confirms the transaction can the transaction be considered valid. The transfer of 35% of the equity has no restrictions on the retention of funds after financing. These 3 shareholders have the right to vote on the board of directors, the right to initiate, and the right to select professional managers, and have priority for later stage equity increases. After reading the terms and conditions for half an hour, Lu Feng sat there and listened to it for half an hour, then said, "Okay, Mr. Gao, you can sign instead of me. How is the operation of the factory recently?" "It is stable, and the net income is increasing every month. Our products already have a certain brand quality. We had a meeting with Mr. Du a few days ago. The next direction is to build a brand and obtain various safety certifications. This kind of awards, next year will be the top priority of development. Whether we can take the next step we'll see next year, and at the same time, we will spend some of the money to advertise on CCTV. Very well, this plan is very mature. What else is there? Lu Feng asked. Gao Jiwei originally wanted to talk about the recent management affairs, but after thinking about it, Lu Feng didn't want to take care of it anymore. What's the use of talking so much? Maybe people don't want to hear it, as if he would not take care of the company if he left. Don't say it at all. After hanging up the phone, Zhang Fengxia sat on the sofa with a pillow in her arms and said, "You haven't managed GMA for a long time. Isn't the power given to President Gao too much? I can manage one company, but what about 100? Lu Feng looked at her and said, "You also have to learn to be on your own." In the future, GFN Technology will also develop a partnership system and give a portion of the equity to the management. 30%, Zhang Fengxia said excitedly. 3 to 5%. The reason why Caramel went out so much was because the situation was urgent at the time, and it was impossible to keep people with great profits. I am a little regretful now. Lu Feng sighed. That's all money, especially now when he wants to cash out, it hurts even more. Zhang Fengxia whispered, "Cao Cao so. What did you say?" Lu Feng asked. "It's nothing, I'm just a little tired. I'm busy every day, and I don't have a company, so I hang it with equity. Who knows how rich it is? How is that Xiaoli village?" Zhang Fengxia asked while leaning on the sofa. "This is your attitude when talking to the boss?" Lu Feng asked with a frown. "Didn't you say you're on your own?" "I'm just like this outside. Today Lu Cheng called me to ask me about my progress. I don't know how to tell him. I just said that President Lu has been busy competing with the village these days." Zhang Fengxia suddenly what I remembered, by the way, Jiao Unfan's Unfan technology, the first brand new high-frequency cross-scan TV is off the assembly line. Go offline, go offline. Listening to Lu Cheng, he was sneering at you in an interview. Got it, rest early. Lu Feng stood up and was slightly upset, thinking to himself that he must take down Xiaoli village as soon as possible. Under the night, Zhao Ergu was smoking a suffocating cigarette in the village committee of Xiaoli village, and a group of Liuzi, Sun Er, and Sibiao sat there without speaking. If it is said that on the first day, Lu Feng may have caught the sixth sun by mistake, but for 2 consecutive days, everyone present understood that Lu Feng knew a lot. I heard that he was in the town the other day. I bought Chinese cigarettes, and when I saw the second bastard, I scattered the cigarettes and asked about it. This young man is not easy to deal with. Liuzi, you hide for 2 days, or he will really kill you. This President Lu is determined to win the electronics factory. Piece of meat, he has to spend the next 250,000 yuan, and if he wants to continue playing, he has to prepare a lot of 250,000 yuan. Zhao Ergu said solemnly. Lu Zi took a cigarette and said, "Uncle Zhao, I also want to go out and hide for 2 days, but I don't have any money. For the 100,000 yuan, give me 50,000 first. 50,000 yuan can buy a house in the city. Hiding is to let you find a place to eat and live. You can rest assured that this money is indispensable to you." Sibiao said, "Then let's go now." "Why are you going?" Zhao Ergu looked at him and said, "Let Liuzi go alone, and find some people tomorrow to block the entrance of the village, so he can't come in, and he can't be allowed to go. The 250,000, I have to get it tomorrow, let alone let him irritate the village. This evening, the bastard from Sangzi's house fought with me, saying that if I irritated him, he would exchange me for 10,000 yuan, and you would smash the glass of his house for me later. The wire is torn." "Don't worry, he can't make any waves," Sibiao said disdainfully. "Then go back first, remember to gather at the entrance of the village tomorrow, I'll talk to Liuzi about something else." Zhao Ergu stood up and let them go. Under the dim gas lamp, Lu Ziyi was smoking a cigarette with a displeased expression on his face. I said so, I won't leave without money, it's 100,000 yuan, Lu Ziyi spit out and sucked it back. What are you doing in front of them in advance? 100,000 yuan is a lot. How many people have to be honored, you don't know? How many things have you committed, why are you outside now? You don't know. The money is in your hands. You said that you are honoring this master and that master. How do I know? Could it be that I will ask those masters, have you received the money? Sixth son stretched out two fingers and said, 20,000, Sun Er and Sibiao's gang also have to give some points. Is it easy to charge? Zhao Ergu entered the back room and came out after a while, holding a stack in his hand on the table and said, it's only 10,000 yuan. After the 250,000 yuan is obtained, you can divide it into 100,000 yuan. Lu Ziyi was only satisfied when he heard this, nodded and put the 10,000 yuan in his pocket and said, I will also go to Xian's house and throw a few stones. After 10 o'clock in the evening, the whole village fell into silence. Suddenly, the dog of Sangzi's house barked wildly, and then the wire was torn off, and a few stones hit the glass, making a clear sound. Sangzi, tell your family Xian to pay attention to what you say, and if you fart, you'll get your head smashed. 4 eyes, grass mud horse ratio, I will go to the village committee tomorrow to admit my mistake, otherwise your family won't have a better life in this village, damn it. The dogs in the whole village barked wildly, and the lights came on one by one. When I tried to turn on the lights in the house, I found that the power was cut off. The next day, when Lu Feng set off, he knew in his heart that today was definitely the most intense day. Whether he could win Xiaoli village would depend on today. The police station intervened. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the car arrived at the entrance of the village and found that the entrance to the village was blocked. There were a group of people standing there. It looked like they were number 2 or 30. Lu Feng got out of the car and looked at these people. He greeted everyone to get off, and told them that today's salary increases, one person from 50 to 100 yuan. We want to enter the village, get out of the way, Lu Feng stepped forward. Sun Er stepped forward and said, our village does not allow outsiders to enter. I am the chairman of Jiafeng Technology. After being introduced by the city government, I conducted an acquisition inspection of the original Panda Electronics factory, including the right to inspect the surrounding terrain, environment, and geographical conditions, Lu Feng shouted loudly. Since Mr. Lu is planning to acquire, let's not say that our village owns the shares of the electronics factory, should we first solve the problems left over? Zhao Ergu walked out, holding a stack of documents in his hand and said, the lame thing should be resolved. I told President Lu, 10,000 yuan per mu of land, ancestral graves are calculated separately, and 250,000 yuan will be given first today. What if I don't give it? Then you can't enter the village. I've decided to enter this village today. Lu Feng waved to the people behind him. 50 yuan was temporarily added. These people are definitely like wolves now, and they are about to start fighting. Zhao Ergu shouted, and everyone present showed all the guys. Sun Er took advantage of the situation to lie on the ground and shouted, I beat people, look at them, I beat people, and I maimed them. Zhao Ergu smiled and said, Mr. Lu, you are rich, but you are arrogant, but you can't bully people like this. People are already in bad health, and they won't be able to get up without a sum of money. Looking at the deadlock scene, Lu Feng said solemnly, you want to fight with me? Are you sure you want to fight, right? Zhao Ergu felt that he really wanted to do it, and said, you have figured it out clearly, this is our village, do you think you can take advantage of it? Lu Feng looked at the time, it was 10:30, Zhao Ergu also looked at the time, the two looked at each other, the scene was full of sex. Call me, Lu Feng shouted in a low voice. A group of people rushed in with sticks in hand. The people guarding the entrance of the village waved with steel forks. They fought and retreated. Son, it's not out of anger. There is no king. Zhao Ergu was in a hurry. In the past few days, Lu Feng kept shouting to the village with his loudspeaker, and some people had begun to report Zhao Ergu. Call the village and say that someone entered the village and smashed it. Everyone in the village knows that Zhao Ergu led people to fight against the big boss at the entrance of the village. Sangzi is in his 40s, standing at the entrance of the alley with a pale face. If she wants to scold, she can only hold it back. 10 minutes later, the sirens blared loudly, and 4 or 5 police cars whistled into the village. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 216. The police number 30 or 40 surrounded everyone, and a middle-aged man came down and shouted, "What are you doing? Put down all the things in your hands. What are you doing? Fighting in groups?" Village Chief Zhao, what's the situation? These people break into the village and make trouble, and the people of our village are forced to protect themselves, Zhao Ergu exclaimed. You're the boss who bought the electronics factory, right? There's been a lot of noise in the past 2 days. The man stared at Lu Feng and said, I'm the head of the township police station. Now, let your people give you all the sticks. I put it down. I went back with me to make a record, and explain the cause and effect clearly. I'm going to buy an electronics factory. I want to go to the village to understand the situation. The other party blocked it, and it's also suspected of fraud, Lu Feng said solemnly. He beat people, Sun Er was beaten, and he had to lose money. If he didn't lose money, he couldn't leave today. He brought people into the village to beat people in broad daylight. Said, losing money. It's wrong to hit someone. I don't care what company or group you are in. Come with me now. When a group of people came up, they were about to do it, and they took out the handcuffs and then handcuffed Lu Feng away. The hired people didn't dare to do anything at all. Lu Feng struggled constantly and said, just torture me, right? My procedures are legal. Why arrest me? You hit someone. How can they beat people if they don't stop them? The problem lies with them. It's going to be said in the town, and why are you struggling with so many people? I have reason to suspect that you are gathering in a crowd to fight. These are my bodyguards, aren't they? They are my company's employees. 3 or 4 people detained Lu Feng on the shoulders, and the handcuffs on their hands were already locked. Once they were detained, if Zhao Ergu did not agree to his demands, they would not be able to reach a settlement. Lu Feng had no other way than to give money. Get in the car, Village Chief Zhao, get in the car too, go back and record. Before everyone could get in the car, the siren sounded loudly again, and everyone present was stunned. Why did another group of police come? This time, 5 cars came. When they arrived at the scene, the doors were opened and they were fully equipped. A man in his 40s walked down the door and asked, where are you from? We are from the Tianhe Township Police Station. Where are you from? We are from the Municipal Public Security Bureau. Have the hostages been rescued? Where are the kidnappers? Huh? Tide, kidnapper. We received an alarm that the chairman of GFN Electronic Technology had been kidnapped to Xiaoli village and called to ask for a ransom. This alarmed the city, and Secretary Huang arrived in a while. I'm Lu Feng, chairman of GFN Electronic Technology, Lu Feng said. Why are you handcuffing people? They got into a fight with the people in Xiaoli village, and they tangled a bunch of people. I was handcuffed and I was going to take it back and record it. We were blocked because they didn't let us enter the village. We greeted the city, bought an electronics factory, and had the right to inspect the surrounding environment. They blocked the conflict, Lu Feng said solemnly. The one from the city may have called the false police. He injured someone, we must take him away. The director greeted him and was about to detain Lu Feng. Wait, since it's a fake police report, we should also take him back to the city for questioning. Please hand him over to us. Why should we hand it over to you? This is what happened in our jurisdiction, don't interfere. This guy from the city glanced at Lu Feng. He had heard a little about Lu Feng's relationship. If he brought it to the town, he might have to suffer a lot. The most important thing was that Huan Yowei would come soon. According to the procedure, Lu Feng was detained by the township, and the city had to pass through the county. Block the car door for me, you can take someone away today and I'll take a look. The people in the village and the gang of bastards hired by Lu Feng were dumbfounded. How could they still do it? People on both sides crowded and stared at each other, and some even started to tear up. An Audi car came speeding, and the driver was a little dumbfounded when he saw the situation at the entrance of the village, and shouted, "So many people." Seeing this situation, Huan Yowei screamed inwardly, and he had already scolded Lu Feng for bloodshed. If the bloodshed was caused by the conflict, he would definitely be held accountable. "Don't fight, let me go," Huan Yowei roared and rushed over, and Secretary Kui trotted along with his bag. When Zhao Ergu saw Huan Yowei coming, his face was a little ugly. It was really a big deal today, so he turned his head and whispered, "Call those bosses, tell the story, and ask what to do. Something big is going to happen." Huan Yowei's first question when he rushed over was, "No one was injured, right? No one was killed, right? I'm uncomfortable, my head hurts," Sun Er cried while lying on the ground. "Quick! Take it to the hospital," Huan Yowei hurriedly said. "No one beat him, he was lying on the ground by himself," Lu Feng said. "Don't let anything happen. You are not the person in charge. Of course, you can find a group of people to attack the village with sticks and send them to the hospital," Huan Yowei shouted. A group of people carried Sun Er into the car and took him to the hospital. "Hello, Secretary Huang, I'm from the Township Police Station. We have to detain this person. The city bureau won't let me detain him. I also act according to the rules." "Rules? What rules?" "I only see the law, not the rules. It doesn't play a role in escorting the city's enterprises, but instead fuels the fire." "I think you've done it," Huan Yowei roared. The other party stood there with an indifferent look on his face. The big deal came down, and he recovered in a few days. "Open the handcuffs, this matter needs to be reconciled, the problem of the electronics factory should be solved, such a large investment, such a good enterprise, this is a treasure for Xiaoli village, but this treasure is turned away over and over again. Besides, what's the reason? It's nothing more than a matter of public and private interests." Zhao Ergu lowered his head and did not speak. Huan Yowei's words made him feel scared. The leader obviously understood it, but he just didn't want to worry about it. Huan Yowei didn't want to worry about it. He also felt that no matter if something really went wrong, he would have to wipe his ass by himself. When Lu Feng came, it was all doomed. Since it can be done anytime, it will be done today. "Mr. Lu, what are your demands, make it clear," Huan Yowei asked. The electronics factory was originally owned by all the villagers in Xiaoli village, and the shareholding ratio has been in dispute. "I can't talk to the village chief Zhao. I want to talk directly to all the villagers in Xiaoli village," Lu Feng said. "This is the property of the village committee, and I am the representative of the whole village." Zhao Ergu panicked. Once he bypassed him and talked to the whole village, something would really go wrong. "Okay, yes, you can enter the village," Huan Yowei agreed. "No, absolutely not, stop him for me," Zhao Ergu cried. Sibiao stood in front of Lu Feng, and the people behind blocked the way with shovels in their hands. Half of the villagers had gathered not far away to watch. "What are you doing? Get out of the way. Secretary Huang, here comes a group of reporters," the TV station in the neighboring county, and the local newspaper secretary Kui whispered. "I was blocked from the outside, I want to interview." When Huang Yowei heard this, he was mad at Lu Feng. He took a deep breath and said, "Let them go back." The crowd started arguing again. Sibiao led someone to stop Lu Feng, and the people under Lu Feng began to push and shove. The scene was crowded with people, there were a full 200 people, and at first glance, they were all cars and human heads. Lu Feng pushed aside the crowd and walked to Huang Yowei's side and said, "Give me an hour, I'll definitely be able to handle it." "What if you can't figure it out? The reporters over there are all here. Are you going to poke a hole in me?" Huang Yowei now regrets it. He was stunned by Lu Feng's phone call and the gift he gave to Jin Tingting. "In an hour, you can directly take Zhao Ergu away for investigation. Now I need you to arrest Zhao Ergu directly. Those people in the village who don't know what he did, give me an hour, and he will have to squat." "Prison," Lu Feng said firmly. "Now I can only gamble. I bet that Zhao Ergu's ass is very unclean. People in the village report with real names. The responsible person must be fully present." He didn't want to pull Zhao Ergu seedlings and pull out a lot of them. "Arrest Zhao Ergu and the one who stopped him," Huang Yowei pointed at Sibiao. A group of people jumped up and immediately needed them. When the others saw this, they did not dare to stop Lu Feng. Lu Feng trotted towards the village and watched the villagers beckoning to the door of the supply and marketing cooperative. In less than a few minutes, the gate of the supply and marketing agency was full of people, old and young. "The villagers of Xiaoli village, hello, I am the chairman of Jiafeng Technology. I know the electronics factory not far from the village. I want to buy that factory. Do you know that you own the equity of that factory? That is to say, you have a share in that factory," Lu Feng shouted at everyone. The pot was fried on the spot, and they didn't even know that they owned the shares of the electronics factory, let alone that they could share the money. "Did you all see it just now? There are all the police outside. Zhao Ergu has been arrested because he committed a crime, but he can't be convicted of a big crime. Don't be afraid. Now is the chance for revenge, as long as you report it with your real name. He will let him sentence him for a few more years." The people at the scene look at me, I look at you, but they don't talk much. They can't trust Lu Feng a little bit. Someone muttered, "There are people above, and they will be released in a while." How could it be? There are people in the city this time, so, as long as you report with your real name, I will reward you with 10,000 yuan, and everyone can share the shares of the electronics factory. "Damn, all the money went into his pocket," Lu Feng yelled. 10,000 yuan per home. Lu Feng clearly felt that everyone present had red eyes, but no one took the lead. Everyone didn't believe that Zhao Ergu would enter. In their eyes, Zhao Ergu was an existence with hands and eyes. "I report," a young man with glasses raised his hand. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 217. Lu Feng took out 10,000 yuan from his bag and handed it to Xian on the spot. He asked him to stand aside and glanced at the crowd. He originally thought that the sixth son would be in the village, but he didn't expect to see anyone until now. Lu Feng has come to understand that the sixth son is afraid of being hanged by himself and is not in the village. As you can see, the money is given on the spot. Who can explain exactly what Zhao Ergu and Liuzi did in the village? Embezzling, selling collective assets, oppressing villagers, molesting women, beating and threatening others, and organizing idle social workers to attack enterprises. Obstructing production, etc., are all serious crimes. Lu Feng shouted, "What are you waiting for? It's time for revenge." I reported that he occupied Zhang Quanyu's wife. I reported that he rented the village to others and put all the money in his pocket. I reported, he ordered Lu Zi to beat people. There was a lot of excitement at the scene, and almost everyone was reporting him, and they were willing to report with their real names. Half an hour later, the police car pulled Zhao Ergu, Sibiao, and Sun Er back to the city, and collected evidence from the whole village. In the afternoon, Zhao Ergu from Xiali village was detained on charges of embezzlement, embezzlement of state-owned assets, and organizing idle social workers to obstruct the production of enterprises. At the same time, Sun Er and Sibiao were under criminal detention at the same time, and Lu Zi was arrested in an entertainment city in the neighboring county that evening. This kind of thunder method is like a big earthquake to the surrounding towns. No one thought that the consequences would be so serious. Everyone has an intuition that a behemoth is about to drive in, an unstoppable behemoth. This time, the acquisition of the electronics factory has basically been completed. Why did the village committee where Xiali village was in front of those companies stalk them, and those companies could not help it? Some local companies have been inquiring about the news here, and they are all curious about the tricks in it. Finally, everyone got the news. This young big boss has a very deep relationship with Huang Youwei from the city. This also caused some township enterprises to completely give up the next move and enter a Zhao Ergu, and they can get a Zhao Sangu. Several township enterprises went in that year, but some enterprises with smaller shares have grown after 2 years, forming its own chain of interests. This local network is very resilient. They know the value of electronics factories. They can always sell them if they are waiting for a price. Lu Feng is also deliberately promoting his relationship with Huang Youwei in the township. During this time, he took so many people to the village. It's not all because of the fear of Lu Zi's actions. If it weren't for the large number of people he had brought with him, he would have been beaten with sacks long ago. Lu Feng had a very clear understanding of the current situation in the township. 3 days later, the reports about Zhao Ergu were overwhelming, and the TV and newspapers concentrated on reporting. Many things have already been ironclad, and Zhao Ergu and his group have become abandoned children. At the same time, the city has issued guidelines to accelerate the acquisition process of Panda Electronics Factory. Lu Feng once again swiped 4.76 million in cash from the secondary card, and took the cash directly to Xiali village in his car. The 760,000 was distributed to the people who reported Zhao Ergu and Liuzi at the beginning. Wan Zi is a person who lives here, and each household is given 10,000 yuan. When the car parked in front of the village committee and piled up the cash into a wall, the eyes of all men, women, and children in the village went straight. The town mayor also came, and at the same time, the director of the township police station also came. Seeing Lu Feng again, there was a gentle smile on his face. Zhao Ergu has already been locked in. No one would have thought that such an honest person would do so many bad things behind my back. It can be said that he has done all the bad things when Mr. Lu is here. I believe that GFN technology will bring a new situation. Lu is always a young and promising chairman. I want to say, how about making him the honorary village head of Xiali village? Inappropriate, this is really inappropriate, Lu Feng hurriedly refused. Okay. Applaud for agreeing. There was thunderous applause, and everyone looked at Lu Feng excitedly, hoping that his rich boss would bring new hope to everyone, but Lu Feng just wanted to get what he wanted. After repeatedly resigning, Lu Feng became the honorary mayor of Xiali village in embarrassment. Every household is 10,000 yuan, and everyone will receive the money in turn. There is a premise for receiving the money. There is a confirmation letter. Just sign it or press a handprint, and you can get the money. The first line of this confirmation letter is bright and bright, the collective equity transfer confirmation letter. Although most of the villagers were illiterate, some of them were literate. After signing the letter, they mumbled. Then they thought about it. The electronics factory had nothing to do with them. If Zhao Ergu was there, the family would share 500 yuan. It has already made a lot of money. Several reporters took pictures at the scene, and Lu Feng asked them to publicize it, focusing on the piles of money, the smiles of the villagers, and the warmth of the money-sending staff. Feel and create local corporate influence. After sending money, Lu Feng stood at the door of the village committee and said a few simple words, that is to say, he is just an honorary village chief and will not interfere in the affairs of the village. Also, when the electronics factory is restarted, people in the village are welcome to go to work. These words are nothing more than to say that if you buy and sell with one hammer, don't look for me in the future, and don't think about giving you 10,000 yuan every year. Lu Feng went back in the afternoon. Lu Feng was sitting in the car watching a stack of contracts and his heart blossomed. He spent less than 5 or 6 million to solve things that needed tens of millions, and he made a lot of money. After returning to the city, Lu Feng immediately went to the municipal administration, entered Huang Youwei's office, sat down and took out a cigarette from his pocket and put it on the table. Smoke. Signed. Signed. Lu Feng couldn't help laughing while smoking a cigarette. This is really true, and it was done beautifully. Mr. Lu, you are a businessman. I hope you remember that nothing in this world is free. Without my help, you can't be so happy. I know that GMA Food should be a major taxpayer in our city this year, and the province should also be a key enterprise. You may go to the province for a meeting at that time. Don't worry. Lu Feng tapped the ashtray in the ashtray and said, I have a 25% stake in the electronics factory. Huang Youwei raised his head in surprise and said, Lu always intends to be the next Zhao Ergu. Ha ha ha, just kidding. I want to know how much the city is going to charge. The situation on the panda side, Lu Feng asked. You are planning to acquire a wholly owned capital. It is estimated that you can't do it without 200 or 300 million yuan. It is easy to say in the market that you invested 180 million yuan that year. According to the inflation of the past 2 years, you can give 200 million yuan, but I will pay in advance. Let me tell you, the technology patent authorization of Panda Electronics will expire at the end of this year. They authorized it for 3 years, and this year is the 3rd year. Hearing this, Lu Feng's face was awkward. You now know why the acquisitions of those companies were unsuccessful. It's enough of a headache to get a small Li village, and there are still a lot of problems behind, especially you now. I heard what kind of vice president you put in the electronics conference. Scolded, Huang Youwei smiled and shook his head. Young man, be more tactful. I'll contact Panda for a while. Don't contact Panda first say you can get so much money. You need money to buy equity in the city, and you need money to buy technology patents. Where's the money? Huang Youwei sat down and lit a cigarette. You can't play without $4 or $5 billion. Lu Feng took a sharp puff of cigarette and said, whoever came out to buy and sell, who pays for the business? I have a plan. Do you think it will work? If it's a financial crime like illegal fundraising, don't talk about it. Am I the kind of person who does that kind of thing? Lu Feng pondered for a while and said, I want to borrow money to buy it. I have no problem raising 1.5 billion yuan. It's really trivial to use this money to move 400 million to 500 million yuan. Tell me about it. I want to borrow 200 million from the city to buy the shares of the electronics factory in your hands, and then use the money in my hand to buy the shares of the Panda factory, and then mortgage the factory to the bank to cash out and get the money after the wholly owned acquisition. I'll give it back to you. Lu Feng leaned back in his chair and said. After listening to it, Huang Youwei pondered and laughed. You are a good man who moves from side to side. The risk is given to the bank, and you take all the benefits. I really don't know where you come from so many strange plans. Yes, but the general manager of Panda, it is unlikely to give you the authorization. He will expire in April next year. Lift. I haven't made any achievements. It's not enough. I heard that he can't sleep now. He is in his 40s. Yes, I'm not interested in you either, you should understand. Lu Feng thought for a while and said, understood, but I still want to meet. Lu Feng only returned to the hotel in the evening. He was in a very good mood today. It happened to be the last day of September. He ordered a few tables and called everyone together. Zhang Fengxia has been busy with the office work. Recently, Liukan has hired a few circuit engineers. Kui Ning sat there with a little concern. The acquisition seems to be going very smoothly. Not to mention. Come, Toast Lu Feng stood up and said, this step is a huge step, and it is the most important step for GFN electronic technology to succeed. I believe that by this time next year, the TVs produced by GFN Electronics will already occupy the half of the TV industry has become a standout in the electronic technology industry. Cheers. The atmosphere was lively, only Su Yorong stared at Lu Feng, her curved eyes twinkling with light. She knew that GFN technology would not have next year. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 218. Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng have been back from Xiangjiang for a few days, all the contracts to be signed have been signed, and the offering of GMA Foods has essentially been completed. In particular, the southern market has begun to spread. The first phase of the factory built this year has been completed. It has recently been put into use, and the OEM work for Wahaha has begun. Everything is developing in a good direction. When he was in Xiangjiang, Gao Jiwei also used Wahaha as a comparison. It has to be said that Lu Feng laid a very good market foundation in the early stage, and it will be smooth today. Although Mr. Li told him today that Lu Feng had withdrawn more than 5 million yuan, the total account had approached 20 million yuan, and he had taken away half of GMA Foods' profits. If it goes on like this, it will really affect the operation of the company. Gao Jiwei also wondered, what was Lu Feng doing? He was burning money so much. He thought about calling to ask, and thinking that he was asking too much to be annoying. He just told Mr. Li that as soon as the financing money arrived, he would directly check the accounts, fill it in, and give the rest to Lu Feng. The next few days are the National Day holiday. Lu Feng wanted to get in touch with the general manager of Panda, but no one was seen during the holiday. At the same time, Lu Feng was also preparing to contact the banks in the city and surrounding provinces. Su Yorong was very quiet during this time. She didn't know what to do in her room every day. She told Lu Feng a few days ago that if she needed the bank relationship in Jiangsu and Zhejiang, she could help connect. I have contacted a few banks and are very interested in such large factories, imported assembly lines, and a full set of machines. They are very optimistic about the electronics industry, and they are also very optimistic about Lu Feng. Between 150 million and 180 million. Some banks have low interest, but there are conditions, that is, GFN Technologies' capital account must be handled in their bank. Some want to participate in a share, and some want to use this factory to issue bonds and bet on the market. With all kinds of ways to play, even Lu Feng sometimes gets confused when he hears it. During the National Day, Lu Feng called Zhang Xiaoyan and asked her to bring Duo, so that he could spare a few days to play with the children. Zhang Xiaoyan refused, for fear of disturbing his work, so he would just come back before the new year. That night, there were constant calls in Su Yorong's room. At 10 o'clock, he received a call from Mr. Lu. On the phone, Mr. Lu had only one sentence, that everything was ready. Then let's do it tomorrow, just as the holiday ends tomorrow. At 1 o'clock in the second half of the night, a lot of invitations were being written with the same words on them. It is scheduled on the 8th of October in the Gregorian calendar to entrust all management shareholders, Zhengtian Investment, Zhongchuang United Investment, and Tianyin Fund to authorize, According to the regulations of the board of directors, the holders of more than 51% of the equity have the right to hold a board of directors. You are invited to attend the board of directors at the banquet hall of TNU Hotel at noon today. Early the next morning, these invitations were sent to the management of the entire factory, including senior management such as Gao Jiwei and President Li. As for the shareholders of other factories, they have signed the power of attorney, and several representatives of President Wang will be there. In lieu of attending. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the local business community was completely fried. There were rumors that the board of directors of GMA Food was out of control, and Lu Feng was about to be kicked out. What the hell are you trying to do? Wang Yueshao, Gao Jiwei rushed into Wang Yueshao's office with the invitation card. He looked at the humble middle-level management, his back was chilling, and shouted, "You call the board of directors? Gao Jiwei is definitely more than one person under 10,000 people in the factory." Mr. Wang was so frightened that he shrank his neck and said, "I'm just taking a name." "Put a name, you have obtained more than half of the equity power of attorney of the entire management." "Right." Gao Jiwei stared at him. "With his virtue, can he do such an earth-shattering thing? I'm afraid there are professional people behind this." "Who told you to do it?" Gao Jiwei patted the table and shouted, "I'm asking you something." President Wang stood up abruptly and shouted, "What are you yelling at? I'm not deaf, I did it, and I'm also a shareholder. I tell you, I can vote you out of the board of directors, believe it or not." Gao Jiwei knew that he was just a puppet, and said solemnly, "Remember, the equity in your hands is the management stock, and you can be fired at any time. Come on, let me see if you open one." "I'll tell you, Gao Jiwei, I have a power of attorney for the management of nearly 4,000 people, and a total advance and retreat agreement for 1,500 people. If you can accept 1,000 people, 500 management resigns at the same time, you can start." Hearing this, Gao Jiwei's face changed suddenly. He had realized the degree of deterioration of the matter, and the company was on the verge of losing control. As for why those companies would carry out this kind of operation in this neutral position that has not been formally handed over, he could only think of one way. Possibly, that is the problem with these three financing companies. The management of the entire factory was in a frenzy. Everyone looked at the invitation card in their hands and was a little confused. This class can't make it? Whose company is this company? When Gao Jiwei returned to the office, he immediately told Du Kefeng about the matter. When the two of them added up, the three companies must be employees who held shares in tandem. "Don't tell Lu Feng now, if it can be salvaged, tell him after stabilizing the matter, otherwise this is a major dereliction of duty for the two of them, and the layoff is a light one. If Lu Feng thinks that the two of them are deliberately operating behind the scenes with these three companies, they can send them both straight to jail. Du Kefeng is responsible for contacting the three companies in Xiangjiang. If the other party cannot be contacted, the contract must be declared invalid, the financing has failed, and the contract must be withdrawn through legal procedures. But this procedure needs to go to Xiangjiang to do it. There is a time difference in the middle, and the other party is playing this time difference. Therefore, in today's board of directors, Gao Jiwei must attend to see who it is and what he wants to do." In the morning, the management of GMA was chaotic and panicked. No one knew what happened. Gao Jiwei held a meeting all morning to calm people down first. There is no impermeable wall in the sky, not to mention that GMA Food has a very important position in the business world of the city. These managements have spread the news in the morning, and all kinds of rumors have come out. For example, Lu Feng's sudden death, GMA Food's internal struggle for power and profit. All kinds of interview calls were rejected by Gao Jiwei. At noon, the entrance of TNU Hotel was crowded with people, and a banner was hung at the entrance with the words celebrating the warm meeting of the GMA Foodstuffs Board of Directors. 10 tables have been set up in the banquet hall, and many people are a little confused when they look at each other. In one living room, Mr. Lu sat expressionless on the sofa, and Gao Jiwei sat opposite. The two had been staring at each other for 2 minutes. I believe that Mr. Gao has understood the current situation. You are also a smart person. I will not disturb the main business of GMA Food. Now I have 65% of the shares in my hands. The absolute majority shareholder, even it won't be long before Lu Feng will spit out the remaining 30% of his equity. Here is an agreement. If you owe it, your equity will remain the same, and your annual salary will become 1 million. All you have to do is do nothing. Mr. Lu pushed an agreement in front of Gao Jiwei and put a pen on the way. Who are you? Is it important? You only need to know that I represent 65% of GMA Foodstuffs equity. Sign it, don't ask so much. Gao Jiwei shook his head again and again. Do you think you have less money? I signed it, and people outside will think that I sold the company together with outsiders. No one will hire me. This stain will accompany me for the rest of my life. Gao Jiwei stood up and said, GMA has fallen, and GMA has fallen. What about the peak? Ha ha ha, do you still expect Lu Feng to sit up that electronic technology company? If you don't want the money, then forget it. Mr. Lu stood up and said, I have to talk to the management. The people in the banquet hall had already sat down one after another and exchanged information about what happened. Mr. Lu came out with a microphone in his hand, followed by Mr. Wang and a group of representatives. Several people stood with their heads held high and their faces turned upside down. Full of arrogance. The villain's state of ambition is vividly interpreted. Everyone, be quiet, let me introduce myself. My surname is Lu. I believe everyone knows that our company has raised financing and sold 35% of its equity. I represent the 3 companies. At the same time, Mr. Wang represents our management. I will simply say that, as the actual owner of GMA Foods, in the future, it will give the management higher dividends and wages, and speed up the construction of our factory. The actual owner of GMA Food? Everyone present was stunned, and a thought popped into their minds, the era of Lu Feng has passed. There are rumors all over the city that GMA Foods was acquired by Hong Kong Enterprises and will undergo a makeover in the next few months. All kinds of rumors spread, and the local TV station even made a special report. Since Gao Jiwei is disobedient, President Lu will hold a board of directors to vote, elect a professional manager, and ask Gao Jiwei to stop all his current work and hand it over to Wang Yueshao. However, Gao Jiwei is still a business partner. In the evening, Mr. Lu asked to block the finances and check the company's accounts. As a result, Mr. Li disappeared with 2 key accounts. He heard from the chief financial officer that he was not in good health, so he went to a place to recuperate, and asked Mr. Gao to leave in the morning. At this point, Gao Jiwei already understands very well that these people are eyeing Lu Feng, and they have made a long-term plan. President Li said in the morning that Lu's transfer of accounts is a risk. Once he is not a major shareholder, it will be very difficult. It is easy to be sent in, so he should hide. Looking back now, Gao Jiwei is a little scared, but the old Jianghu like President Li knows more, but President Li also said that the account is nearly 20 million less, and it is a matter of time to find out. Come out. After Gao Jiwei called Du Kefeng, he bravely called Lu Feng. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 219. After 8 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng had just finished his meal and was combing through the bank he had contacted recently. He had been waiting for a call from Panda for the past few days. Lu Feng asked Huang Yuewei to speak to him. despite mentioning. Got a call from Gao Jiwei just after 9 o'clock. What's wrong? Lu Feng picked up the phone and asked casually. Mr. Lu, something happened, something happened. Lu Feng was stunned when he heard his lack of confidence, and hurriedly asked, how many died? No one died, it's just that the shareholders who raised the funds had a problem. Gao Jiwei explained the matter in its entirety. Lu Feng's face was already extremely ugly. Zhang Fengxia, who was beside him, had never seen such an ugly face of Lu Feng before. She was horrified and asked, what kind of production accident is this? He took a deep breath and said, did you not check the operating status of the 3 companies in the past few years when you raised the fund? You can use this kind of trick. How about you two find something for me? To be careless, the 2 of us also went to these 3 companies to see that they had complete staff and stable operations. President Du even played a little trick and went to the supermarket downstairs to ask the clerk how long this company has existed. I've been dismissed, it's really not collusion with outsiders. I hope you collude. Lu Feng wanted to scold his mother angrily. He felt that it was useless to scold people, so he turned his head and asked, check the flight situation, is there any time to fly back soon? Now. What happened? It's not a big deal, that is, GMA food is out of my hands, and I will soon go to jail for embezzling money. Lu Feng looked at her and said. Ah. How could this be? They're all asleep. I'll call and ask about the ticket first. 10 minutes later, Zhang Fengxia came back and said that the earliest flight is tomorrow at 9 a.m., and she will go back at noon. Lu Feng asked Gao Jiwei a lot of questions, and then called Du Kefeng again. The good news is that other factories are basically producing in an orderly manner, and only the factory in the headquarters is noisy. The bad news is that Lu Feng has lost control of GMA Foods. While walking through the procedure, the financing contract was declared invalid. According to Du Kefeng, the other party's 1.5 billion is prepared to be given, and the contract stipulates that it will be paid by the end of the year. The door was suddenly opened, and Su Yorong ran in a slightly panicked pajamas, and asked, what's wrong? It was so noisy, I just saw Fengxia trotting to ask for the ticket, do you want to leave? There's something wrong with GMA food, Lu Feng said helplessly. Ah. What's wrong? Is it serious? I don't have the right to control anymore, so it shouldn't be right. These companies invest to make money. If they kill me now, can they make more money? Lu Feng sat there and pondered, this kind of things are too abnormal, as long as a company with a little brain will not do it. Of course, some companies that feel good about themselves are not excluded. The first thing to do after becoming a shareholder is to squeeze out the original team, and then send their own people to squeeze out the original team. But this has a premise, that is, doing so can make the enterprise develop better. What these people do goes against this goal. Su Yorong sat there without speaking. Lu Feng analyzed it for a long time, and Zhang Fengxia came to a conclusion, so the people behind this are either for the money or to bring you down. Who am I to blame? 3 people, you look at me, I look at you. Am I blocking people's way of making money? Lu Feng asked again. That's what you know, but planning to mess with you like this person is very small, and it is likely to be a woman. You have provoked women, and the retribution is coming. Zhang Fengxia sneered. Woman. Lu Feng froze in his heart, and looked at Su Yorong. There was no superfluous expression on the other party's face, and he looked at himself with some inquiries. For free? For such a promising company as GMA, the first thing after becoming a shareholder is to collapse and then squeeze itself out. Lu Feng put these conditions into his seat, and the result he got was Su Yorong, but he didn't say it. Go to bed early and go back tomorrow, Mr. Su, you can follow me back tomorrow. It's not easy to clean up this time, so I might trouble you, Lu Feng said. Su Yorong didn't expect Lu Feng to invite him, so he was stunned and said, Okay, I'm willing to serve. After the two of them returned to the room, Lu Feng's face was extremely ugly. He was very passive after such a simple situation. If it wasn't for Mr. Li's experience, he might have been detained by now. This shows how important it is for a company to have a seasoned financial experience. Going back at this juncture, Lu Feng became angrier the more he thought about it. He raised his foot and kicked the bedside table with a curse in his mouth. The landline fell to the ground and was stepped on by him a few times. Almost venting his anger, Lu Feng sat on the bed and rubbed his face with his hands. Suddenly, he found that there was a signal device in the broken phone. He squatted down and picked it up. When Su Yorong returned to the room, she was still muttering in her heart. Her mind was full of Lu Feng's eyes. With a little doubt, she intuitively told her that everything she did was judged by the other party in an instant based on various conditions. It's not good to be too smart, it makes me look like a retard. Su Yorong lay on the bed and couldn't sleep, thinking in her heart, would it be a disaster in the future to keep someone like Lu Feng by her side? After thinking about it for a long time, I didn't want to think about it, so I lay down and went to sleep. The next day, news from several northern provinces was overwhelming. The reports on GMA food were very intensive. Many news focused on Lu Feng losing control and Gao Jiwei being dismissed. Can the cooperation with Wahaha continue? At noon, as the plane landed, Lu Feng returned after almost half a year. The airport gate was jammed with reporters. The news of GMA food was definitely the hottest news. Although he didn't go out through the gate, he was stopped by reporters. Dozens of people surrounded him. For the first time, Lu Feng felt the star's helplessness. The flash was flashing in front of him, and Lu Feng kept blocking it. Let's go, the road is blocked. Excuse me, according to the rumors, GMA Food's financing this time was set up by someone, is it true? I heard that this financing plan is still the plan in April this year? Haven't you read it yourself? It's rumored that you are going to leave and invest in the electronics industry with your money, which makes the management dissatisfied, isn't it like this? Can you contact Gao Jiwei now? Have you been tricked by these professional managers? Is it true that you are against top management? Lu Feng listened to all kinds of questions with a big head. He pushed the crowd away without saying a word. With exclamations, several female reporters were pushed to the ground. Someone took pictures at the scene, intending to use this as news. Lu Feng got into the car, and his ears were still buzzing while sitting in the back row. He took a deep breath and said, "Don't let me in front of the stage again, I can't stand this." "The boss of the business always has to come forward," Zhang Fengxia said. "You go. If you have anything to do in the future, you will be interviewed." Lu Feng waved his hand helplessly. When the car arrived at the Tianyu Hotel, Lu Feng opened a few rooms and arranged for Su Yorong, Zhang Fengxia, and a few other staff members to go there, and then called Gao Jiwei and asked him to come over. In the private room, Lu Feng was ordering food, and the lobby manager next to him was smiling, and kept talking about how much he missed him, like a man who missed himself. "Just these dishes, don't keep thinking about me, it's easy to be misunderstood." "I see Xiao at the door is gone?" "Quit," Lu Feng asked casually. "Mr. Lu, you are thinking about Xiao." "I'm resting today. I'll call Xiao when I have time. Let's have a meal with the three of us. I'll treat you." "Don't, I'm afraid my wife will scratch me when I go home," Lu Feng joked. After the lobby manager left, Su Yorong said, "It seems that you often eat here." "Frequent customers, there is only such a big hotel in our city, a small place, don't dislike it, Mr. Su." "How can it be, there is a different kind of customs." If it wasn't for her familiarity with Lu Feng, Su Yorong would never have imagined that such a shabby city could produce a talent like Lu Feng and make GMA food so big. A few minutes later, Gao Jiwei pushed open the door and walked in. His face was pale and his eyes were dark. He obviously didn't rest well. He entered the door and looked at Lu Feng first. "What are you doing? Sit down," Lu Feng said. Just as Gao Jiwei sat down and was about to speak, Lu Feng spoke first. "This is Mr. Su. You introduced me to me. It's just like what you said. He's very old." "Hello, Mr. Gao." Su Yurong stood up and stretched out his hand. Gao Jiwei shook his hands very perfunctorily. How could he have such thoughts now? As for not knowing Su Yurong at all, it was only through introduction. Has the factory officially produced it now? Production is business as usual. I heard that an audit team came and turned over all the financial accounts. That boss Lu said that he would send you in, and your 30% stake could not be kept. Lu Feng nodded and asked, "Where's the big head?" Ah, Gao Jiwei really didn't understand. This was burning his eyebrows. Why didn't he panic at all? I said, "The big head didn't come back, he has 5% of the equity in his hand." "Big head, he called me in the morning and said that he would drive back in a while." "Mr. Lu, what I was thinking was to send Mr. Du to go to Xiangjiang, and quickly void the contract before the money came." I asked Hong Kong. "The stock exchange, this process is very troublesome, and it will take at least half a month. The trouble is not bad these few days. You call Dai Feo and ask him to come here." "I haven't seen you for a long time," Lu Feng said calmly. Gao Jiwei could only nod his head. Zhang Fengxia sat there and asked, "What about this?" "What should I do?" Lu Feng leaned back on the chair with a sullen look on his face. He glanced at Su Yurong slightly and said, "Do you know what a local snake is?" High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 220. After 1 o'clock, a car parked downstairs, the door was pushed open, Data walked down, slightly tidied up his suit, and he hasn't seen him for almost a year. Going up is more like a boss. His mathematics is already very good. In this year of study, he has made considerable progress in the company's financial management. Now that the board of directors of GMA Food is such a big thing, he has also heard a lot. When he went upstairs, when the waiter opened the door, he saw Lu Feng with a smile on his face and said, "Brother Lu." Lu Feng didn't expect him to change so much, and waved, "Sit down, this is a big change. If you meet me on the road, I will definitely not dare anyone, thinking it is the boss of Hong Kong and Taiwan." Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed and sat down. He looked at Lu Feng and found that Lu Feng had changed a lot before. Lu Feng's face was still a little green, but now he is more mature, and he has his own aura in his gestures. Sitting among the people at a table, you can see at a glance that he is different, and the momentum of the superior is well grasped by him, as if it is natural. After a long time, we talked about what he had done for so long. When he recalled it, he felt a little emotional. Gao Jiwei simply took 2 bites. He felt that Lu Feng was not particularly panicked. This gave him a little peace of mind. 1 month ago, Mr. Lu approached me. At that time, he told me about the board of directors, and at the same time, he bought my shares at a high price of 30 million. I didn't agree, Data said. Gao Jiwei sighed a little and said, "It's still a good relationship between the two of you to start a business together. It is absolutely sky high for a small shareholder to give this kind of price. Fart, the equity in my hand is the same as your management's. It is a dividend share. It can't be sold, it can be sold, and it can be sold to President Lu," the big head said with a smile. "Do you really think he's stupid?" Lu Feng laughed and said, "This study is not in vain, the tuition is worth it." I ate this meal until after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and chatted a lot with Datu. He completely changed his fate. First, he found an old university professor and entered a training class. Later, he spent money to find a relationship and entered a college. Colleges and universities, After 2 years of study, they are college graduates. Data knew that Lu Feng was going to engage in electronics. He wanted to continue to participate in the stock market, but Lu Feng politely refused. Of the 3 or 4 people at that time, he helped him the most, and the people were the most simple and honest. It's paid, and from now on, the two will not owe each other. The big head was rejected and said nothing. That is to say, I will always hold the equity of GMA Food, and after graduation, I will consider development in finance, taxation, accounting, bank loans, and so on. Zhang Fengxia and a group of people lived here. Before leaving, Lu Feng went upstairs and ordered her to stop worrying about GMA Food. Her focus was Jiafeng Technology, especially the general manager of Panda. Tell him immediately. You drink so much, I'll take you back. Zhang Fengxia stood up and said. Su Yorong opened his mouth and said, you are busy with your business, I will deliver it. I happen to be walking around the city as well. It's better for Fengxia to deliver it, I don't even know the way home anymore. Lu Feng went downstairs without looking back. Zhang Fengxia stared at Su Yorong and followed her downstairs. Su Yorong picked up the cigarette on the table and lit a cigarette. She snorted coldly, it's all here, and I'm afraid I can't find my house. As soon as Lu Feng got downstairs, he ran into Zhang Xiaoyan picking up Duoduo back from school. Why did you come back? Dad, Duoduo rushed over. Lu Feng picked her up and said, there was something wrong with the company on the plane this morning. Come back and deal with it. Dad has been drinking, it smells bad. Duoduo covered his nose with his hands, his face full of disgust. Go upstairs first. Zhang Xiaoyan hugged Duoduo and said politely to Zhang Fengxia, Fengxia, go upstairs to drink some water too. No, I still have something to do, so I'll go back first. Where do you live here? Stay in Tianyu, don't worry, I'll go first. Zhang Fengxia waved her hand and got into the car. The house was meticulously tidied up. There was a new photo frame next to the TV. Inside was a photo of Lu Feng before. Zhang Xiaoyan also wanted to take a wedding photo, but when she married her, she was so poor that she didn't take any photo at all. Zhang Xiaoyan poured a glass of water on the table and said, what happened, come back in a hurry. I miss you. Lu Feng looked at her and smiled. Zhang Xiaoyan blushed, reached out and hit him, drink some wine and talk nonsense, drink the water and go to bed. Don't sleep, I haven't seen you for so long, come and give me a kiss. Lu Feng stretched out his hand and pulled Zhang Xiaoyan down on the sofa, giving her a sip on her red face. I want to kiss too. Duoduo quit, feeling that he was left out. Lu Feng had no choice but to kiss her on the cheek. In the afternoon, Wang Yuxiao was interviewed as the general manager of GMA Foods. He told reporters that there was no equity confusion in GMA Foods. The management shareholders and the shareholders who recently raised funds voted to arrive at the latest strategic route. A lawsuit will be filed against the shareholder Lu Feng, involving embezzlement of huge amounts of public funds, making false accounts, etc. At the same time, GMA Foods will focus on building 12 factories. The factories that were originally divided into 3 years and 3 phases will be completed next year. GMA Foods will make strategic adjustments, including but not limited to food processing, OEM, etc. At the same time, the dividends for the management's shareholding will increase. And Wang Yuxiao said to the outside world that the 3 major shareholders have reached a further equity interest with Lu Feng, and it is likely that they will fully take over GMA Foods within this year. As soon as the news came out, it was another wave of public opinion storms. Du Kefeng's phone was about to be blown up, and he couldn't answer it at all. Gao Jiwei had already let him go. If he was fired by the board of directors, it would really be possible that the production order would collapse. Now Du Kefeng has to pretend to be dead, keep silent, do nothing, not participate in anything on the board of directors, hide in his own office in Zhengzhou and pretend nothing happened. There was a lot of uproar in GMA Food, and even some newspapers in the South, and then connected to GFeng technology, there are too many things to write about. It's like a big show. The next day, the coffee table in Zhang Fengxia's room was piled up with these piles of newspapers. Except for the entertainment newspapers, all of them reported the civil unrest in GMA Food, and they seemed to be developing in the direction of Gongdu Opera. Infighting among shareholders, uneven distribution of benefits, GMA Food founder eats meat and soup, and management drinks Northwest Wind. Rebel. The management of GMA Foods, together with the three major shareholders, wants to squeeze out the founder, and may even face prison. Interpretation of GMA Food, a food company that has grown up in the wind and rain, the bloody competition within the management has brewed today's bitter fruit. There are a few reports that are more realistic, focusing on Wang Yueshao and why GMA Foods succeeded. The management is generally young, and they only focus on results. The top management put crazy pressure on the lower level, don't ask about the process, only ask about the result. Here you can really soar to the sky. Wang Yueshao is in charge of the market, from joining GMA Foods and becoming an ordinary marketing, to middle management, it only took 5-month time. In 5 months, he has been squeezed dry, and people from the lower level are constantly attacking him. If he can't go to the upper level, he can only pacify other departments. After 3 pacifications, he will be expelled according to internal regulations. Fight to the death. High pressure and high indicators mean high income. GMA Foods' salary is twice that of other food companies, and if you include equity dividends, it is more than 10 times. At the end of the report, it was written that this is the reason why GMA Foods is crazy to hit the market. Our reporters contacted some terminal market owners. Their description is that the people at GMA Foods are no different from mad dogs. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng sat on a chair and read the newspaper, with breakfast in front of him, sat there eating a lot of noodles, and watched Lu Feng quietly several times. Dad. I miss you. I'm sitting right in front of you. Lu Feng looked down at the newspaper and said. But I've been thinking about you for so many days. I think looking at you a few times is not enough to make up for my missing you. I want to see you for a while. Lu Feng put down the newspaper, smiled at the little girl's video, and said, if you don't want to go to school, just say it, and your teacher will teach you this. I just miss you, really, my good dad. The little guy clapped his hands and sang. Stop, eat your noodles, I don't care if your mother whips you. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he picked up the newspaper again. Zhang Xiaoyan came out after washing her face and found that she hadn't finished her meal. She shouted, what time is it? I can't go to school. Why is it so hard to go to school? I think your skin is itchy. Duo pouted his head to eat. Lu Feng watched her quietly and laughed. He couldn't deal with the child. The little guy folded his arms and acted coquettishly, and his heart softened. After reading these reports, Lu Feng already knew in his heart that these people are the factories that want GMA Foods. Zhang Xiaoyan sent Duo to school, and Lu Feng called Gao Jiwei and drove downstairs to the factory. It does take about a month to go through the process of financing in Xiangjiang, but Lu Feng, as a local, can let them fool them. Some things are very complicated, but they are actually very simple to do. If this situation is entangled in the issue of equity, it is easy to fall into it. It is the right way to cut the mess with a quick knife. What Lu Feng has to do is to announce to the public that the other party's financing is invalid, internal management problems, and all the management who are dissatisfied are fired. How many are fired? As for the prosecution of Mr. Lu and Wang Yueshao, not to mention that there is no substantive evidence, what if there is? Lu Feng has grown up to this day. Is it a person who can toss with a few pieces of garbage evidence? That's too bad for him. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list.